I hope I don't have this volume up too high. So let's see who's hopping on real quick. Let me refresh this. Let's see if this thing will pop up. Oh, there we go. It popped up instantly. All right. So I don't know who's hopping on right now. I can't see anybody. But what I want to do, I want to go over Vincent's thing. So Vincent, he sent me an email. Remember, what was it, like a week ago or something? I sent an email saying, hey, if you guys need help, send me your stuff and I'll help you guys in terms of the marketing and all that sort of stuff. So Vincent sent me an email. And this is actually similar to John's thing, sort of, in terms of the advice I'm about to give, just because it's very similar in terms of Vincent and what he's doing and kind of what John was doing as well. So, well, not similar in terms of the stuff they're doing, but in terms of the problems that they have. So that's what I want to go over real quick. If you guys have any questions, make sure you ask, and we're just going to get into it. So here's the thing. So Vincent sent an email. It's a pretty long email, so I'm not going to read it. But basically, Vincent has been a member for a while. Let's see. So he has a consulting contract in a South African private equity fund to raise money for investments. Okay, and so that takes up 30 to 35 hours per week. Just that one thing in terms of the investments. Okay. And then after that, he has two e-commerce brands. So one's a Blend Strength, one's a BioHealth. So he has two e-commerce ones. He's doing the raising the money. The third thing he's doing, he wants to do more of the speaking business. What's up, Paul? Let's see, the fourth one, so his background, this is just the background includes broadcasting. And then the fifth, or technically the fourth one is voiceover. So he does voiceover work. What's up, Alex? And so there's a lot going on here. So I don't know if Vincent's on or not right now, but there's a lot going on in terms of what Vincent's doing. So first he has to raise money for the consulting firm. He has the two e-commerce brands. He has the speaking, and then he has the voiceover thing. And the voiceover, oh, what's up, Vincent? The voiceover, sounds nice as hell. I went to the voiceover thing. I'm like, damn, does sound like true professional voiceover work right there. So this is actually similar, like I said, to the advice that I gave, that I was giving John. So let's actually look at this. Let me see which one. All right, there we go. So yeah, let's just look at this. So this is one of them, the e-commerce brands. This is like a NutriBullet, but looks a lot cooler. So yeah, that's what this is. So he's selling this. Okay, selling that through Samcart. Same with this one. This is like gut health, probiotic type thing. Selling this, got this sales page going. So these are two different e-commerce brands. Then there's the speaking, the voiceover, and then obviously what he's currently doing in terms of raising the money. Now, just like what I said with John, what's up, Ari? Just like what I said with John, you're doing way too much. And in fact, I think you actually mentioned that in the email as well. In terms of you kind of already know. Yeah, you say you have a lot going on. You already know you have a lot going on. And this is actually why it hasn't like resulted in what you want to do so far in terms of the what you're trying to scale it to. And that is literally the answer. Like, it is literally the answer to your question in terms of what it is you're trying to do. You say you want to do more of the speaking, and if more of the speaking is what you want to do, you're going to have to basically cut everything off. The only thing you may not have to cut off is maybe some of the voiceover work, but you got to cut everything off. So think about it like this, okay? So let me go back here. So think about it like this. This product here, let's say you want to sell more of this product, the Blend Strength, okay? Is that what it's called? The Blend Strength? Okay, so you want to sell more of this. Well, you're going to have to get better at the copy. So I haven't actually read the copy, but no matter what copy you have originally, it's never as good as when you actually focus on the offer and everything, like really getting good at it. So it's like, like you would have to build a better looking sales page, and you'd have to get the copy better. The copy better. You'd have to figure out like what the real offer is, like why it really sells. So like, okay, glass is better than plastic. So you got to like think in terms of is something like that what people really want. So like you got to really, really focus on this. And then you'd have to get really good in terms of the ads. So it's kind of like, are you spending money on Google ads? Something like this would go good with Google ads. And then YouTube ads would probably work well with something like this too. Like I would basically put the YouTube ad like NutriBullet, Ninja Blender, and all that sort of stuff. I'd put the YouTube ad on that. So you'd have to do it with that. The same goes with this one, to where the probiotics is the same thing. You got to improve the copy. Like, once again, I haven't read the copy, but I just know whatever copy you start out with, it's never as good as what it could be. So you got to improve the copy. You got to focus on that to get it to convert. You got to make sure like the way it looks is better, and all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot going on if you're just doing one of these, like just one of these, not both of them. If you're just focusing on one. So you got to truly understand the audience and everything. Once again, you got to think, well, where's going to be the best ad placement for this, for the probiotics? So is it going to be Facebook ads? I mean, will Facebook allow these type of ads? Or so it's all this stuff that you really got to think. And that's why it's so hard to do multiple things at once, because it looks like you can do all of it, but it's just, you have to keep iterating. So even though it's the basics, even though it's just, you got to get the copyright, or AKA the offer, and then ads. That's basically all you have to do for the e-commerce stuff, the copy, or the offer and the ads. That takes up a lot of your time, like a lot of your time. And you're already working the 30, 35 hours a week doing the other thing that you're doing. So it's like, just by doing those two things, it takes up a lot of your time. Then if you're going to do the speaking's like the same. You're going to improve the website a little bit. You got the video going, but you're going to improve the website a little bit more. And then you got to focus on the outreach. You got to build that out. You know, like all you members, you have all access to all that sort of stuff, but you got to build all that out. And then same with the voice work here. I'm going to let you guys hear this because it sounds good. So let's see.
Our founder, Eddie Bauer, was an outdoor guide. He dedicated his life to making gear that got people outside.
So like you see, it sounds really good. It sounds almost as good as my voice there. You're close, Vincent, you're close. But it's like the voiceover work, once again, with that, is kind of like, well, how are you going to get the gigs that way? I mean, I would assume that type of work is going to be outreach as well. So outreach based, maybe even, once again, ads would probably work with that. But it's the same thing. And even with the voiceover work, so like this website, I would even change it to feature more of the voice work. So right now, it's kind of like, it just has this one part here. So it's literally just this one thing. What I would do personally with the voice work, man, there's so much you could do. But what I would do with the voice work, so I would for sure get on TikTok, and I would be making TikTok videos around basic stuff. So let's say, I don't know, the microphone, and you just sound good with the mics, and you just like make a commercial based on the mic, or an iPhone or something like that. And you just make a commercial, or just like a banana, just like random things. And you just make a commercial around a banana and stuff like that. I'd do stuff like that on TikTok. And then I would probably, let's say it was an iPhone, I would tag Apple and stuff like that. But every single thing that you're marketing, you're running too many races at once. And because of that, nothing is taken off. So you got to remember, even the fastest man on the planet, Usain Bolt, even he can't run multiple races at once and win. So it's the same thing. You got to literally imagine it as you are running a marathon, and you picked 5 different marathons to run. And no matter what, you're going to get tired. It's too much. So you're going to get tired. You're going to end up in last place because everybody else, they're going to keep running on that one marathon, and you're sitting there trying to run 5. It's like, okay, let me go here, run a mile. All right, let me skip over to this one, run a mile. So you're just going to get too tired. And so you really, really got to focus, like obviously what Greg posted there. I just can't stress the importance of the focus thing. And once again, if you guys have any questions, make sure you ask, and I'll be sure to answer any questions. The focus thing, I truly think that is what separated me from all the other entertainers and speakers back in the day when I was just doing the cold emailing. Because especially back in the day, like with the MySpace age, and there wasn't Facebook and all the stuff now, Facebook, Snapchat, all the stuff now, it was just like MySpace was the biggest social media platform out there. No one really used it the way everyone's using stuff now. And so all I had to do was cold email. That's it. It's like there were no distractions. Now there's so many distractions. It's like, how can you not like want to do everything? TikTok, YouTube, you want to do everything. And you're creating content, you're doing ads, you're doing outreach, you're doing all this stuff, but you're just not going to get good at any of it. It really, really is the most important thing when it comes to like growing the business. And you got to think, like, even let's say Elon Musk, probably like one of the best entrepreneurs right now This guy he's only running 2 companies, and even only running 2 companies means he's doing a 100-hour work week. And he has a team. Like, he has a team of people he can delegate stuff to, but he's still like stressful, and it's a lot of work just running 2 companies. You got to think the same thing with your offers and everything. So you got to think of each offer as a separate company. So there's the voiceover, there's the speaking, there's the probiotics, there's the blend strength one, and then there's what you're currently doing in terms of raising the money. So it's like each one is just too much, and each one requires a different skill. Elon is amazing. Yep. I can't wait for the new book that's coming out on Elon. So apparently the Walter Isaacson guy, the guy who wrote all the other cool books, he's writing a book on Elon. So can't wait for that one to come out. But that's really all I wanted to talk about today, to be honest, was just Vincent's thing in terms of the focus. And if you guys have any questions, make sure you ask. Like I said, I don't want to turn these lives into me just like talking, because otherwise I can just produce YouTube videos to do that. It's more of like, what are you guys working on? What do you need help with? And that sort of stuff. So if you guys need help with anything, make sure you ask. I'll wait a few seconds. But yeah, I honestly, I just can't stress the importance of the focus thing. I always tell people to read the book, The One Thing. The other good book is, let's see, what is it called? Time Management for Entrepreneurs by Dan Kennedy. That one's like a more detailed, I guess. It's more ruthless. In fact, I think that's what he actually says in terms of like being ruthless with your time. And so it's crucial. You say, I think a VA is in the offing. Yeah, and the VA, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. So like a lot of speakers, and well, if you guys have been following me for a while, you mentioned how I tell a lot of speakers want to basically hire someone to get the gigs for them when they don't know how to get the gigs. And that's not how it's going to work. Because if you do that, then they essentially won't know what to do, because it's like you have to teach them what to do. And on top of that, even when you teach them what to do, it's like teaching anybody anything. When they start out doing it, they're not going to be good at it. It's like if you start out in boxing, you're not going to be good at it at first. The same with the VA and all sorts of stuff. So they're just not going to be good at first. So you just got to teach them. You got to make sure that they're kind of on the right path, and you're looking at them. And then eventually you can back off a little bit more and all sorts of stuff. But if you're going to like hire somebody, then you can take them just one step at a time. So it's kind of like, maybe you show them, here, I want you to build like a list of events using these keywords, and I want you to get the name, the website, the email, and this. So you just tell them they're going to get this, and then from there you go on to do the rest of the stuff to actually get gigs. But yeah, it really just it really just depends when you're hiring people. Just make sure you're not doing it like the way most speakers do, to where it's like, hey, I'm hiring you, go get me some gigs. All right, I'll talk to you later. That's how like most speakers do it, and then it doesn't work. Okay, so let's see. All right, so you said did a speech Thursday. Hope to market to all their competitors next. Yep, perfect. So you said, what do you know about podcasts? I have a podcast, and everybody watches and loves it, but I'm having trouble increasing my audience. Well, it's similar to like anything in terms of growing anything, in terms of like Instagram following, all that sort of stuff. It is a combination of like the good content combined with are you like promoting it. Everyone tends to create content, but no one seems to focus on promoting it. And this is why I keep telling everyone, spend money on advertising. Like the spending the money on advertising, it just gets you further faster. That's what it does. And that's why so many people are confused when, I don't show too many people like how much money I have, but a few people who know me, they have a sense in terms of how much money I have. And it's like, if they look at that and then they look at, let's say, my Instagram following or whatever, it doesn't make sense. They're like, what? And I tell them, like, it's all based on the ads. It's strictly based on the ads. And damn near all my friends who are making all the money, it's the same thing. I think only one of my friends has about 40,000 followers, and he has 7 figures. And I think only one of my friends has a good amount of followers. Like most of my friends who are making the most amount of money, they're the ones who have like 5,000 followers max, and they're doing like 8-9 figures. So it's one of those things to where if you're going to promote a podcast, you got to think in terms of the promotion first, and the content is you need good content, but you got to think promotion. So if I'm focusing strictly on the podcast, I'm thinking in terms of like, well, what's the topic first, the idea first? Is this topic or idea, does it get a lot of clicks, a lot of views, and all that sort of stuff? So that's what I'm thinking about first. And you're reverse engineering it. So you say, you reverse engineer. So let's say the topic is, well, what is your topic, Ari? So just tell me what your topic is in terms of your podcast. But you reverse engineer everything. And then what you're going to do is you're going to tap into other people's audiences. So if you do interviews, that's going to help you just grow faster, bigger in general if you're doing interviews. So you say overcoming adversity. So that's one of the things to where it's like, I think you're going to have to change your topic, because you're going to have to reword it or just change it, because it's like overcoming adversity. It's like who's big in that space. There's nobody that I can think of that's big in that space. So if you can't think of people who are big in that space, then it's just the wrong space to be in. So you say, check out Whispers and Bricks. Sounds very familiar. Whispers and Bricks. Let me see. Whispers and Bricks. Whispers and Bricks podcast. So let's check these guys out. Oh, that's your thing. Oh, okay. Okay, that's where I heard of it, because it is your thing. Okay. So like you got to think, if you're going to talk about, like I said, everything is reverse engineered. So with your podcast, you start out with what podcasts are currently popular and what are they doing. So you're going to reverse engineer Joe Rogan's podcast, reverse engineer the Call Her Daddy podcast, the true crime ones. And like, that's kind of what you're going to do. And it's kind of like, well, what does Joe Rogan talk about? Joe Rogan talks about all the current trends. If something's happening, Joe Rogan's talking about it. If it's the virus, if it's the Kardashians, if I don't know, whatever else is going on, the politics going on, that's what Joe Rogan talks about. He trend jacks, he news jacks. So it's kind of like whatever is going on, he's going to have an opinion about it. And I think he was just in on Twitter, the trending thing, because I don't remember what he was talking about. I didn't click on it. I just saw Joe Rogan. And so that's what he does. So you got to think, are you going to do something like that? If let's say your whole thing is about overcoming adversity, then you're going to think in terms of, let's say, newsjacking to overcome adversity. Okay, newsjacking, how did we overcome the virus or something or whatever? But you're basically newsjacking. And then it's like, well, how did Elon Musk overcome almost going bankrupt with Tesla and SpaceX? And you'll come out with that around the time the new book about Elon Musk comes out. So you're going to trend jack. Or let's say like right now, there was another guy in the Olympics. He what was it? It was some crazy story. It was like at 2, something crazy happened to him. At 5, he got kidnapped. At like 9, it was like some crazy story. And then he won a gold medal. And so you would see something like that, and you would now tell a story about, look, how this guy overcame adversity. But what you're doing is you trend jack. So you do something like Joe Rogan. Or if you do something like the Call Her Daddy podcast, that's like an X-rated podcast, to where I don't know how you connect the two with the X-rated versus the overcoming adversity. It wouldn't be like your style probably, but it's one of those things where you look at these guys and you see like, what are they doing? What are people like latching onto? And let me just copy that. And that's kind of what you would do in terms of growing a podcast or just growing anything, really. That's kind of what you do. But you got to focus on the promotion. And you got to think in terms of, are you willing to spend money to promote it? And when you spend money, you got to think about like, where's this going? Like, what exactly am I selling? What's the purpose of the podcast? So many people, in fact, let me show you guys. I took a screenshot of this because I was actually thinking about sending an email out about it. So let me get rid of the guy's name first. I want to like show his name and just put him on blast or anything. So basically, okay, let me do that. There we go. So he said this. All right. He said, I'm 4 years out and still producing episodes. Should I be monetizing or should I keep inspiring, motivating listeners? Gets tough at times, okay? So he's 4 years into the podcast and basically nothing's going on. 4 years, nothing's going on. So he's like, should I be monetizing? Should I keep inspiring people? It gets rough at times. So he's like, help me, please. And that's what happens when you don't reverse engineer. That's what happens when you kind of just copy everyone just for the sake of copying people. It's like, well, everyone's saying to produce a podcast. Let me just produce a podcast. Oh, everyone says I should write a book as a speaker. Let me just write a book. Everyone says I should create content, YouTube stuff. Let me just create YouTube stuff. And it's like when you don't reverse engineer, you just start doing stuff without a plan in place, without like a real plan, without a direction that you're really taking it. And when that happens, you end up getting burnt out because you don't know like where you're going. You're just doing it just to do it. 4 years go by. It's like, what am I doing? Not making any money from it. And that's just what happens just over time. So that's why you want to essentially reverse engineer. Why do you have the podcast to begin with? Is it for the speaking industry? If you have a podcast for the speaking stuff, then it's kind of like, who cares about growing the podcast? You want to get on stages first, because to grow the podcast, that's going to take a whole lot of time and money to promote it. But if you're just trying to get on stages, once again, you're just doing the outreach. I think what happens with a lot of speakers go to a podcast or like video content because they can't cut it with the outreach. I think that's literally what happens. It's like they understand, maybe they look at someone like me or something, they hear me talk about outreach and they're like, okay, cool, let me do some outreach. Then they realize, damn, this is harder than I thought. Oh, it's more boring than I thought. That's what happens. And then they switch to something that's easier. It's like, let me switch to creating a podcast. Let me switch to creating video content because it's easier. But what they don't know is 5 years from now, nothing is going to change. Like they're going to be in the same place, just like that guy who said, hey, 4 years out creating this podcast, nothing's happening. And so that's kind of, you don't want to be in that place. That's why you got to reverse engineer. You got to say like, all right, what is this podcast for? If you create the podcast, let's say, to me, the podcast thing is one of those things where you would just create the podcast and you would just post it. And it's just one of those things like, oh, I'll just post it. And if stuff happens, it happens. Or you say, I'm going all in on podcasting. If you say I'm going all in on podcasting, now you start to truly study guys like Joe Rogan, the Call Her Daddy podcast. You start to truly study them. And now your podcast goes from you just talking like how I'm talking to like being a full blown production. There's music and there's storytelling and all sorts of stuff. So you have to like truly think, what exactly am I trying to do with this whole thing? That was a long ass answer to your question, but that's a basic answer. So any other questions in terms of what you guys should be doing? But like I said, I mean, everything really does come down to reverse engineering and then focusing on what it is you should be doing. You focus on the activities that bring in the money, pretty much. Not pretty much. That's literally what you do. You focus on the activities that bring in the money. And then everything else is just going to kind of waste your time. Everything else is just going to make it harder for you to like truly produce revenue in the business. But yeah, like I said, you just got to decide in terms of, am I going to really do the podcast? Because if you really do the podcast, the speaking and everything else is secondary. And then with the podcast, it's one of those to where you're thinking even something like overcoming adversity. It's kind of like, well, who exactly is the audience? Is the audience like CEOs, or like who exactly is the audience for that? And so, yeah, if you're going to go podcast, like really, really go podcast. Otherwise, it's kind of just doing what everybody else is doing, to where you just have a podcast just because. So that's, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with it. Like I just have a podcast just because. So it's like I produce the podcast content and I just, there we go, just put it out there. I don't promote it at all. It's like I just produce it and there we go. And that's it. Because like I said, all my real time and effort is spent on the advertising, because that's where all the money is. It's like, all right, let's spend money on the advertising. The outreach that we do is different than the outreach that I show you guys to do. It's more focused, because we're selling like high ticket stuff. So it's like 20 grand and up type, 15 grand and up type of thing. And so it's not the speech, it's like these workshops and all that sort of stuff that I'm selling. So it's very targeted in terms of like, hey, we're just going after Salesforce or something. But basically it's outreach, and it's a lot of money on ads, and then everything else is kind of secondary. All right, any other final questions here? So I'll wait a few seconds. See, do you offer a percentage of your fee when you book via referral to a client from another speaker? Do you offer a percentage of your fee when you're booked via referral from a client? No. No. Well, first off, I've never, a couple times. Like, in terms of speakers referring other speakers for gigs, that rarely happens because speakers, almost all the speakers that you know of, are struggling to get gigs to begin with. So I honestly, well, yeah, so I've never had another speaker refer a gig to me. I've had an entertainer because, like I said, back with the entertainers, my friend Rich, the guy who I learned all the cold call and all this stuff from, that dude was like on it. I mean, he was on it. So he was booked up. He's like, Benji, I got a gig for you. So he was really on it. That was the only other time where someone really referred. But I don't even focus on stuff like that. I don't hang around speakers, none of that. I don't talk to speakers. Well, I mean, I talk to you guys, but other than like Speaking Lifestyle, if I didn't have Speaking Lifestyle, speakers wouldn't know I existed. And so with something like the referrals, I don't think about stuff like that. I think when I say focus, I really mean focus. Like all my thoughts revolve strictly around basically get the money. That's literally all my thoughts revolve around. I don't think about things like, oh, if a speaker gives me a referral, then should I give them a fee? That's very low on the totem pole of thinking for me. It's strictly, okay, what do I do to generate the revenue? And that's it. It's, all right, let's focus on the outreach. Like, should I type this a little bit differently? Should I say something a little bit differently? Okay, what about the ads? Should I reword this a little bit? Okay, well, should I do a webinar thing, or maybe the phone funnel works better? I'm not thinking about those type of things. I'm strictly thinking about the revenue. That's literally all I'm thinking about all the time. And so it's just really, really important to kind of, just like how you do with a to-do list. It's like, well, first I'm gonna do this one, then this one, this one, this one. So that's how I operate in my head. It's like if a thought pops up in my head, I think to myself, well, does this thought like really, really matter? Like, I mean, is it on level of importance? And if it's not that important, it goes all the way down. It's just like in the back of my head. If a speaker were to ask, if they were to say like, hey, I'll give you this gig. Like, do you give like a referral fee? I'll say, sure. Yeah. What do you want? Like 15%, 20%? Sure. And then I just think about it right there at that moment in time. But I will not ever spend time like right now thinking about that when I should be spending time doing other more important things and thinking about other more important things. And it really is like a black and white type of thing. It's one of the best that I've seen at this that you guys should study is Jay-Z. Jay-Z doesn't do anything if it doesn't involve money. It's pretty insane. Jay-Z and actually Mayweather as well. Mayweather, so I saw a video with Mayweather. This was after the Logan Paul fight. And after the Logan Paul fight, there was these two water bottles just sitting there. Like it was like a after conference thing. There's two water bottles sitting there. Let's say it's Dasani or whatever. And first thing Mayweather does, he doesn't sit down. He's like, all right, hey, everybody, whatever. He doesn't do it. First thing he does, he sits down, sees these two water bottles. He picks them up. He's like, did they pay for this? Do they pay to be here or something? And then like, I guess nobody answered him. And then he goes, well, they didn't pay, so they're not getting promoted. And then he puts them on the ground. And I was like, damn, like this dude is dead serious about getting paid for his time and everything. Like this dude's serious to where he wouldn't even let water bottles sit there if they didn't actually pay. And Jay-Z he's very similar. Jay-Z's like, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. Jay-Z, I remember reading the book about Jay-Z, Empire State of Mind. And as I'm reading this book, I'm like, oh, it's a cool book. But I'm thinking to myself, why did they like interview Jay-Z? Like, why did they interview this guy? And the author talked about it. So as I'm done with the book, the author saw him in a video and he was like, yeah, we tried to interview Jay-Z. In fact, we even met up with Jay-Z and his manager and stuff. We met up with him and we were talking about the book. We were saying to Jay-Z, look, man, we're going to write a book on you. We're going to put you on the same pedestal as guys like Warren Buffett, all these other big time business guys. He's like, we're doing all this stuff. So it's not going to be like, we're going to trash you. It's going to be a great book about you. And Jay-Z goes, well, what do I get out of it? And he's like, do I get money or what? Like, what do I get out of it? And they were saying, well, we can't like give you a percentage or anything. We can't like really give you the money or nothing like that. And he said Jay-Z just like got up and left. Like he just ended the interview, just got up and left. And that's literally how you have to be with your thoughts if you're going to like grow your business. It's one of those things where, not too many people will like admit it, but if you actually hang around and talk with people who are making money, that's what's going on in their heads. And very few people will admit it, because when you talk about money like that, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are like, ooh, he's just about the money. I don't know. They kind of like try to back away, and I don't know, it's just about the money for him. And in reality, every single wealthy person I've talked to is like that. Every single one of them. Whether they hide it or not, that's the difference. So every single one of them is like that. That's the only way you can get wealthy. You have to think about money like that. You have to think about little things in terms of the question, like, should I give a percentage, a referral thing to the speaker? Like, you have to think, is that an important thought that I should be thinking of right now? And usually the answer is no, because it has nothing to do with actually generating revenue right now. So that's kind of how you want to think about these things. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be asking these questions, by the way. So even though I'm like saying these, and I know people are probably thinking like, well, maybe I'm not going to ask my question because Benji might tear me apart. Oh my goodness. So you want to ask the questions, just because if you don't, you won't know if what you're doing is wrong. And this is why I'm blown away by the amount of people who don't ask for feedback. In fact, the only people I won't say that, but basically I'm blown away by the amount of people who don't ask for feedback. It just amazes me, to be honest. Like, I think the only people who truly ask for feedback are people who they're kind of already wealthy. Like, all my wealthy friends, they're the ones who ask for feedback. In fact, last Monday before the live stream, how I talked with the manager of the Nick guy, the Nick who's charging like $25,000 a speech. He speaks with Tony Robbins, like he speaks at Tony Robbins events and all that. And what was the first thing that they did? They came to me. They're like, hey, like, how can we improve this outreach thing? And they instantly ask for feedback. Even though they're making all this money, they're doing really well, they're the ones who ask for feedback. But a lot of times the people who aren't doing well, those are the ones who keep to themselves. They don't ask for feedback, and I don't know what it is. I really don't know why. But you just got to make sure that even if it sounds like a dumb question, you just want to ask it anyways. Unless it really is like a stupid question, then you probably don't. But you get what I'm saying. So any other final questions? I'll wait a few seconds because I know there's a delay. But yeah, I just want to stress the importance of the focus thing, and like truly just really study people who make a lot of money. Like you'll see what happens. That's why I like study billionaires and things like that, because you see the reality of the situation. And it's why I stopped reading personal development books, because they don't talk about the reality. They talk about some fantasy land that doesn't actually exist. It's more like a utopia in the mind, and it doesn't actually exist in the real world. And that's why I study like super successful people, whether it's athletes, billionaires, or even just people like Alexander the Great, that sort of stuff, because you see the reality of a situation instead of what the personal development world kind of tells you, like, think positive and everything's going to turn out just fine. So that's why you want to do that. Like, you study these guys because you'll see what actually happens. In fact, a really good book is How to Get Rich by Felix Dennis. So this book, Felix Dennis was the guy who created Maxim magazine and all these other magazines. He had multiple nine figures. I think by the time he died, he was like worth 800 million or something like that. But basically in the book, he talks about all this stuff. He pulls back the layer in terms of how the wealthy people think. And this is coming from a guy who was wealthy as all hell. And he pulls back that layer in that book, How to Get Rich. And it could be eye-opening to some of you guys. All right, cool. Yep, Micah, no problem. All right, any other final questions before we are done for the day? I'll wait a few seconds. And let's see if there was anything else I wanted to mention. Nope. All right, cool. I think we are good for the day. So I will see you guys soon. And thanks, everybody, for showing up. Adios, toodles. Take care. Bye-bye.